Hello friends. How are you? I hope all of you well and good. Sorry I was busy in my other works, which reason I was not meet with all of you. Again sorry for this. Now I am come back after long time. Today we talk about amazing and beautiful palaces in the world, which is very useful for tourists. Our world is chock full of amazing places. Seriously, go out your front door, start walking in any random direction, and chances are that you'll probably hit something interesting within a few hours. It could be a meadow, a groovy street you've never visited before, a windswept stretch of coastline, or even just an all-you-can-eat noodle bar, offering free drinks to every unshaven customer. Hey, amazing is a relative concept. Number 10. Germany. Dresden's nickname is Florence on the Elbe. That's a mighty claim to fame, and it's absolutely not overstated provided you've just discovered this article in a crash time machine and are reading it prior to February 13, 1945. That was the night Allied aircraft firebombed the ancient city, turning this architectural treasure into the urban equivalent of the charred lumps you get at the bottom of a fire pit. So why, pray, do people still think of Dresden as beautiful? That's probably because they've seen pictures of it after its partial reconstruction was finished in 2005. The key word there is partial. Aside from a tiny fraction rebuilt in the center, most of Dresden today is soulless concrete housing blocks. Number 9. Dublin, Ireland. The capital of Ireland, Dublin is top number 1 for millions of Americans, proudly tracing their family's history and/or looking to get falling down drunk on Guinness. It's a city that's beautiful, historic, literary, and small enough to get a handle on, unlike its British behemoth of a cousin London. Sounds great until you happen to inquire about the prices. At that point, you'll find yourself weeping over your empty wallet as all your hard-earned cash evaporates in a haze of whiskey fumes. Number 8. Iceland. The entire population of Iceland is a mere 334,252, about the size of Santa Ana, California. The number of annual tourists to Iceland is over 2 million, or about the same as the population of Houston. Imagine the entire citizenry of Houston upping sticks and deciding to spend 3 months in the summer swarming through the streets of Santa Ana, taking selfies, clogging up traffic lanes, and generally acting like Americans on vacation, i.e. like jerkwads. Everything would vanish under a sea of 10-gallon hats and Texan attitudes to gun safety. Well, that's basically the permanent condition that Iceland lives in. Number 7. Varanasi, India. Varanasi is the spiritual home of Hinduism, a place where enlightenment fuses with mind-blowing architecture to create something completely unique. The centerpiece of this is the mighty Ganges, which flows through the city, washing away sin with its powerful waters. At least, that used to be the case. Today, the Ganges is less a river than it is a rolling wave of sludge so toxic it'll either give you superpowers or just outright kill you. Number 6. Stonehenge, UK. Imagine being at Stonehenge during the solstice. The eerie silence just before the sun rises between the perfectly aligned rocks would be magical. Or at least it would be, if that eerie silence wasn't being broken by the sound of car horns, roaring engines, and gridlocked drivers yelling at one another. Yet, despite being an ancient wonder supposedly in the middle of nowhere, Stonehenge is actually close to a road. And what a road! Known as the A303, it is the key link between London and the counties of Devon and Cornwall. That's the same Devon and Cornwall that Londoners drive to en masse every single weekend and public holiday. Number 5. Draculas Castle, Romania. Maybe we're asking a bit much to expect somewhere known as Draculas Castle to be free of tacky roadside stalls. But there's ordinary roadside tat, and then there's the sweeping miles of stuff that plagues Bran Castle in Romania, the source of Bram Stoker's inspiration for his novel. You've probably seen pictures of the castle, looking suitably European and forbidding, surrounded by a sea of forest. What those pictures don't show is the far bigger forest of tackiness that surrounds the real one. Number 4. The Maldives, those screensavers of pristine white beaches lapped by crystal clear waters you're always seeing on your mom's old laptop? There's a good chance they're pictures of the Maldives, a tiny collection of islands in the Indian Ocean that banded together to form one very spread out state. To be sure, the islands are as beautiful as those pictures suggest. But entering an island paradise isn't quite as simple as hopping the first flight to its capital, Male. Unless you're very wealthy or have done your research, your vacation in the Maldives could wind up being very expensive or very claustrophobic. Number 3. Bagan, Myanmar, a collection of thousands of ancient temples spread out across an endless rolling plain. Bagan in Myanmar looks like the sort of place you would be willing to kill to visit. For sure, it's one of the most Instagrammable spots in Asia. But those awesome photos taken from afar and showing the distant temples wreathed with mist miss out on one very important piece of context. Historically, plenty of those same temples weren't exactly cared for. They look like they do today not because that's how they're meant to look, but because the previous military government ham-fistedly put them back together again without having a clue what they were doing. Number 2. Germany's Romantic Road. The Romantic Road. Even the name is evocative, conjuring images of stately medieval towns, ancient castles, and more beautiful nature than you can shake a stick at. Running through Germany from the town of Würzburg to Füssen in the Alps, the road sounds like the very definition of old-fashioned European romanticism. There's just one problem with that. It ain't old. It's not even something the Victorians came up with. It was invented by travel agents in the 1950s, and you better believe it's as jam-packed with tourists as that implies. Number 1. Disney World, Florida. As a kid, you probably dreamed of going there. Disney World in Orlando, Florida, is the biggest of the Disney amusement parks by far, and the one which advertises itself most aggressively. All of which simply proves the old adage that bigger is not necessarily better. Disney World has the worst rides, the emptiest swathes, and the least charm of all the parks in the Disney franchise.